All right, welcome back to Archaic Radio. You just heard some news. Now you're going to hear some history. John, what have you brought for us?
Okay, we're bringing in Archaic History right now. Now, so this is for the week ending in November 21st. So we're going to go from November 15th to November 21st. And we're skipping November 15th. There's nothing really going on that day. So, sometimes there are slow news days. This was one of those weird
Remind
weeks.
me next year to do something absolutely awesome that day.
We'll have to make our own rock and roll history.
I mean, that's
so like November
news.
15th, 2019.
Yeah.
Chauncey and John, ...
Right, break into,
Yeah, we totally
Chuck
need
E.
to do
Cheese
like
dressed
some...
like the band. And fill it.
I thought we were going to trash a motel room or something, like in rock in rock icons.
Afterwards, also dressed like Chuck E. Cheese's band.
Okay, good. What were some of the Munch? I have to do a little research here now. But we got to bounce back. So we had Munch. Who else was in the band there?
Chuck E. Cheese, Jenny Henney or something.
Oh, Krusty the Cat.
Oh, yeah, that was the...
I could cross-dress and go Madame Oink.
Madame Oink.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Could be quite the evening.
Then they had their culturally not very good drummer that was the Italian baker guy with the big curly mustache.
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah. Where they Italian stereotype as their drummer,
Yes.
So that might be why they're retiring that. But
Yeah.
I think he replaced the cat, but I don't know.
Yeah, Krusty the Cat.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it going. So November 16th, 1974. It's hard to believe that John Lennon only had one number one hit in the U.S. I guess that's not the hardest thing to believe. He had a lot of popular songs. But when I was younger,
Imagine wasn't a number one hit.
No, yeah, okay, exactly. Okay, so songs like that. I mean, you would think that would be a big, big hit, but they never were. What did become these only solo number one hit, then we're talking like after Beatles, just John Lennon by himself. I love this song. It's Whatever Gets You Through the Night.
I like that song, too.
It's a great song.
I don't think I really knew it very well other than a smattering of listens over the years. I've definitely heard it more and more familiar with it now via you.
I played it here on the show before, and I try to sneak it in whenever I can. I love it. It has the SNL. Like I'm thinking of
G.E. Smith.
I almost said Kenny G because I was thinking saxophone, but G.E. Smith era SNL from like the 1990s when that saxophone's hitting you hard and G.E. Smith is smiling and playing guitar. That's a saxophone sound that's happening.
G.E. Smith actually played with a lot of super famous people.
He was on Hall & Oates.
Yeah,
he's on the video for Maneater. I know that.
Yeah, but there's a lot. He was one of my recent Wikipedia wormholes, man. Is looking at G.E. Smith.
Do we need to do a G.E. Smith?
We might need to do a G.E. Smith
set,
as long as you're willing to hit the Hall & Oates. I know.
Well, I am. I play Hall & Oates all the time. We can play Man. I know for a fact he's on Maneater, so that's one song that we can play that I like.
Sweet.
So. All right, so back to John Lennon and Whatever Gets You Through the Night. But it is rocking that sweet, sweet saxophone. I've really fallen in love with the saxophone in rock and roll. Being all punk rock and stuff and growing up, I got way better on the saxophone because I would think about Kenny G and stuff that your contemporary music your parents were listening to and stuff like that.
Sure.
But you forget about how saxophone rocked it in rock and roll.
And
we try to bring saxy back. Yeah.
Yeah, even in punk.
Even in the so we have to play Bondage Up Yours and Sweatshop now because that's some of the best sax and punk.
Clarence Clemens,
yes.
He definitely brought it to the East Street Band. They
oh, no, that's not Clarence.
Oh no, oh
I said Clarence Carter. Never mind.
Clarence Carter, I forgot about that. Yeah. No, but Clarence Clemens definitely was part of the sort of reimagining of the East Street Band, then Born to Run, that really kicked him up a notch.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so Whatever Gets You Through the Night was like the big hit for John Lennon. We're gonna play it because I love it. So in across the pond over in England, the song did not get better than number 36, so it wasn't that big of a hit over there.
Huh.
They really came through in America.
They felt he ditched out by moving here.
Yeah,
I guess.
well, I don't know. His girlfriend May Pang would later recall that John got the inspiration for the. Now wait, I better check my notes here. He should be married to Yoko Ono at that time, right?
I don't know.
Well, let's forget. We're gonna gloss over that, but apparently he got the inspiration for the song when he saw TV evangelist Reverend Ike utter the phrase, "Let me tell you guys, it doesn't matter. It's whatever gets you through the night."
That's true.
So that says May Pang here, but I think that should be probably Yoko Ono. But we're gonna go back and check that because I'm pretty sure that he was with Yoko Ono at the time. All right, moving on. November 18th, 1970, in degenerate Jerry Lee Lewis news. Always a little bit of fun here on
there always is some.
on Archaic Radio. Jerry Lee Lewis and his wife / cousin, Myra Brown, are granted a divorce, ending their 13-year marriage. The two had wed on December 12th, 1957, when Myra was just 13 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, he married his cousin. I thought we had brought that news story up on the show before.
Right. Well,
It kind of just goes in that Jerry Lee Lewis news. Every time Jerry Lee Lewis news comes up, you're like, ugh, it's going to be greasy.
Well, my wife was complaining about being old and the effects that it has on one's body, and Jasmine's just all, well, if this was the Middle Ages, you'd have been dead by now. And I turned to Jasmine and I'm all, if this was the Middle Ages, we would have married you off to one of my friends like 11 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's like...
Exactly.
Well, careful.
All right, second on November 18th, 1972. We're going from the weird to the kind of sad here. So you guys have heard me talk about Neil Young here a lot on the show. Everyone knows I love Neil Young and his backup band, Crazy Horse. Now, they were a band before it was just Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And Neil Young wrote a lot of his good music based off of the leader of Crazy Horse, Danny Whitten, who, I'm sorry, I'm explaining this incorrectly, or not too clearly. Neil Young's really, really good friend in the late 60s, early 70s was Danny Whitten. He was the head of Crazy Horse, the main songwriter and singer in Crazy Horse. And he died of heroin on November 18th, 1972. And around that time, he was really good friends with Neil Young, and it really kind of hurt Neil a lot. He had a couple other friends that died of heroin, and that was a hard thing for him to take. Yeah. And then he adopted the band after that. So he made albums with Crazy Horse after that to kind of pick up the rest of the band. Right. But before Neil Young, actually before he was just starting out solo, but it was Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Then Neil Young had some solo stuff. Then he started doing Neil Young on Crazy Horse because he just picked up the rest of the guys after Danny Whitten died.
Right.
So Danny Whitten was the head of Crazy Horse, which was destined to be an awesome, awesome band that just didn't happen. Actually, they were awesome. They made great music with Neil Young for years and years and years, and still do off and on. But
now they've just been relegated to some of Neil Young's 48 some odd albums.
Yeah, exactly. There are a ton of Neil Young albums. Now, Crazy Horse has a few albums. There's only one full-length album with Danny Whitten. It's just Crazy Horse, self-titled. That's the only one worth checking out. We're playing a song from that on here tonight.
Sounds good.
November 19th, 1977, the Ramones lead singer Joey Ramone, and by the way, his real name is Jeffrey Hyman.
Really?
I've heard it before, but I can never remember it. It just seems so weird for him. I know they were all like Jewish guys from New York and stuff, kind of like Kiss, all Jewish guys starting their thing, but like you wouldn't think like Jeffrey Hyman is like a name that you would not pick.
Yeah, well,
for Joey Ramone at all.
Yeah, like Dylan. Robert
Jeffrey. It's like the Jeffrey. It sounds so.
Yeah, totally.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, it kind of fits. But Dylan was Robert Zimmerman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's right. Yeah. Robert Zimmerman. Okay, so and by the way, the Ramones lead singer Joey Ramone was originally going to be the drummer of the band, and Dee Dee was. And we talked about this before. Dee Dee was supposed to be the singer, but Dee Dee could not sing and play bass at the same time.
Oh.
So Joey thought he'd sing, but
he found a great musician.
Yeah, he found that he could not sing and play drums at the same time.
Right.
So he just became a singer. Then they got Tommy Ramone, I believe, right? Then it was Marky Ramone. I'm going down the Ramones wormhole. Everyone's not following me, but there was...
I got to say, the inability to play Ramones bass lines and sing at the same time is like...
Well, that pretty much means that you're just starting to play music, which was those guys were. Like when you first pick up your instrument, you really can't do that. But if you can't play, quarter notes or, 16th notes of the same thing.
You're right.
Singing some words.
My very first band practice I ever had, I had just gotten a bass within a matter of weeks. Jamie had been playing guitar for about 3 months. Jeremy had been playing bass for about 6 months and guitar for a little bit. And Chris just got his drum set that day. Mm-hmm. And we set up at the park and tried to play.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It sounds good in my memory, but I'm sure it was just like hell to the park people. There was a lot of random frisbees thrown, I'm sure, at that day.
Yeah, this is back when people used to throw frisbees at the park instead of shoot drugs and be homeless in the park.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
And then what? Bo Diddley.
Okay. Yes, we're still on our news here. Back in archaic times, November 20th, 1955. So, Bo Diddley performed on the Ed Sullivan Show. Ed Sullivan and his staff really wanted him to perform 16 Tons, which, of course, wasn't a Bo Diddley song. It was him doing a cover of a song. Right. But they wanted that because that's what would be acceptable for the audience.
Especially given his level of melanin in his skin.
Exactly, which we're going to touch on that in a minute here.
Yeah.
So, of course, he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play Bo Diddley. Is Bo Diddley going to play Bo Diddley? Because that's his song, right?
Yeah.
Then he played that, and apparently Ed Sullivan was so mad that Bo would never be invited back. And Bo Diddley later said that Ed Sullivan said, I was one of the first colored boys to ever double-cross him, and he said that I wouldn't last 6 months.
Huh.
Well, apparently that didn't happen because Diddley did prove Sullivan wrong. He released 11 albums between the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah. And definitely carved out his own sound, and a sound that was very regurgitated.
Very uniquely his. Yeah.
Very, very his, you know. He created that wall of sound just with that reverb, but still was able to cut through with it. It was like, it was awesome. Yeah.
It's most definitely Bo, but when you hear it, you'll know it's Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
And we're going to play Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley. And we're going to finish it up with some Beatles news. We're not going to play the Beatles. I said to touch on it. We talked about it earlier. November 21st, 1960. While the Beatles are performing at the Kaiser Keller in Hamburg, Germany, 17-year-old George Harrison is deported back to England for being in the club while underage. So, we were talking about George Harrison age earlier.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's younger than, well, not Ringo, but younger than John and Paul because they were allowed to stay, and he was deported back.
Yeah, and I think you were right. I think he is the youngest. I think I totally do remember this now, and I remember being shocked by it because he always looked like the oldest, you know. But, Paul was so baby-faced.
Yeah, Paul's baby-faced and lived on, and John was dead by the time we were cognizant, really, you know.
Right,
and then
yeah.
Ringo was just like, he's Ringo.
John was like 80, 81 when he died, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I was barely, you were like, what, 5?
Yeah.
You know, you were not sure who John Lennon was, and I was not even sure what Star Wars was.
Yeah.
So, long way from John Lennon at that point.
Long, long way. All right, so we are going to play ourselves some John Lennon, whatever gets you through the night.
We're going full circle on this. Yeah, we're going whatever gets you through the night. And then what do we have next? We have
Crazy Horse.
Crazy Horse, yes. We have the Gone Dead Train.
Gone Dead Train, yeah. And then Do You Want to Dance by the Ramones, and then
Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley.